and her waste management company was in the city of Chesapeake, where I was the public information manager coordinator.
Okay, I've been to Chesapeake.
Felicia and I first met, so we go way, way back.
Oh my God, there's a cool museum in Chesapeake, if I'm not mistaken, right? Am I right? Or is it in?
Which one are you thinking of, Leslie?
Yeah.
I know.
I grew up in Chesapeake trying to figure out what was the cool thing about there.
Well, we have that nifty Battle of Great Bridge center that's opened up.
Maybe that's it, or I might be thinking another. I mean, it's right, and there's so much in your region. I love that part of the country.
You might be thinking the Chesapeake Bay area, which is in more of a Maryland side.
No, I'm thinking Virginia. It might be. I'm gonna have to look at the map to see. I might be thinking. Yeah. But I know I've been to Chesapeake. I have actually been in Chesapeake. I remember that because of the Chesapeake Bay. I was like, oh, Chesapeake Bay, but it's not in Maryland. It's Virginia. So.
All right, folks. Well, I'm not seeing anybody else joining, so let's jump in on this. We have a lot of ground to cover and not a whole lot of time to do it. The one thing I'm wondering about is recording. Anna Marshall, do you have a record button? Because I do not yet.
I'm recording it, Mindy.
I was just going to say, it appears that it is being recorded.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Janet, thank you. So everybody, I'm Mindy Hughes, PRSA Regional Rep Manager. Janet, thank you for the great introduction earlier. I know a lot of folks in the session and looking forward to working with everyone throughout this next year. I've been a member of PRSA since 1987. And I've been in the Hampton Roads, Virginia chapter that entire time. Shout out to my peeps in the room from Hampton Roads. I served as chapter president there in 2010, and I was chair of the Mid-Atlantic District in 2012. Anna Marshall Wilson is co-facilitating this session with me this morning. So Anna Marshall, jump in and say hello and tell folks a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm Anna Marshall from the North Carolina chapter. This is my third or fourth year serving on the district board, and have served on the NCPRSA board in some capacity, including as president several years ago. Been on the board there for 12 or 13 years, but currently working as a contractor to my company while my children are homeschooling, if you will, during a pandemic. But Mindy, I'm thrilled to be with you today and thrilled to see all of you.
Super, thanks very much. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Stay on mute unless we call on you to speak. And I think we do have a couple people that will be able to share some great tips with us. We're going to be using the chat function to respond to questions, ask questions, make comments. Anna Marshall's going to monitor the chat for us. And I believe that the chat is being recorded as part of the session along with the video recording. So afterward, we'll review that transcript and make sure we capture all the comments and questions. And if we see some things that are particularly relevant, we'll share that out with you in the next week or so. So we want, again, this to be as interactive as possible. At one point, we had a whole lot more people that were going to be in this session. So I think with, what do we have now? 27, that's a little more manageable, and we will be calling on a few folks. I really want this to be a generative conversation. We have a lot of brain power in the room with us, and I want to use that, tap into that as much as possible so that we can generate as many strategies and tactics that you guys can take back to your boards to consider and possibly develop for your chapters. So yeah, 2020, everything was beta in 2020. You guys, I am so proud of all of our PRSA volunteers. Y'all were scrappy, y'all were resilient. You jumped in and you figured out how to serve your members as well as possible in the virtual environment. So props to you guys. I really appreciate everything that you did last year. About 6 months ago, I said that I thought that 2021 would be a rebuilding year for our chapters. I think that's still true. It may be a little slower than we expected, but I think it will be happening. For those of you who participated in the Leadership Assembly in December, you saw that PRSA's membership has been declining. It's probably going to decline a little more before it levels off and we start to tick back up into some growth. On the chapter level, most of our chapters have lost members during this past year, some more than others, depending on what market you're in, what your market conditions are. Some of our chapters have kind of stayed relatively steady around the same number that they typically fall. And we're seeing some that are starting to tick back up already and growing. Hopefully more of you will get on that ticking back up track soon. But this morning, I don't want to talk about numbers. I want to talk about people. Our members are PRSA. And as leaders, it's our responsibility and it's our privilege to serve those colleagues in our chapters to the best of our ability and to help them become smarter and better prepared and more connected, because that's what PRSA is all about. So let's jump in there real quickly. I want to go over the survey results. Thank you all who responded to my little survey monkey this week. The results, 37% of you said that your biggest concern with your chapter's membership is lack of engagement. That was followed by 31% loss of members, and about 15% said the lack of volunteers. A few folks said that all three of these areas are big concerns, and I hear you, I feel you, I get that. For priority membership goal, growing membership was the top at 40%. Increasing your member participation and engagement, 25%. Volunteer recruitment came in at 12%, and improving retention was at 6%. And that was kind of a trick response on my part. I kind of threw that in there because if you improve your member retention, you're going to grow because you're going to have less churn in your membership. So based on those responses, we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about membership this morning, but we'll still be touching on volunteer recruitment. So our priority focus on membership. Just a few key items that I want to get into before we start talking about tactics. It is your board's responsibility. Membership is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the membership chair. Everybody on your board should be an ambassador for PRSA and for your chapter. And you really need to be intentional with your membership. It requires a plan, it requires work, and it's not going to happen organically. We're going to talk a lot about providing value. 95% of PRSA members who belong to a chapter say that the chapter is where they get the most value out of their PRSA membership. So you need to be thinking about your value proposition for your chapter. What are the benefits to someone to belong to your chapter? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. When I talk about membership, I see it as three components. It's serving your current members and serving them well. That helps them, and it helps your retention, and it keeps your chapter stable. You're also prospecting and recruiting new members. That's bringing more people into your chapter community, and it provides you with more resources to serve folks. And then finally, onboarding new members. This is an area that I don't think gets as much attention as it should. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because the earlier you can get people engaged with your chapter, the more likely they are to see that value and get benefit and stay with you. So how you do those three things are going to vary from chapter to chapter. You know, what works in Richmond may not work quite as well in Memphis. So, but let's move on and just talk about a few foundational tactics that, if you're doing these, great. I think a lot of you probably are doing them. If you're not doing them, figure out a way that you can do them. So we're going to start with talking about our current members. You need to understand their expectations and what they're looking for. What do they want for programming? What do they want for networking? What kind of support do they need so that they can be successful? And the only way you're going to find out about that is to ask them. You either are going to need to do a formal survey of some sort, or you can do it more informally. I've talked to a number of chapters where they've done it at the board level. They've divvied up the membership list and every board member takes a group of people and calls them. For most chapters, that's not going to be as heavy of a lift as it sounds. Some of our larger chapters, it might be a little more challenging, but you just got to get a plan and get it done and talk to people. And I think that also goes into communicating regularly with members. We had some questions on the survey about that. People were asking how best to communicate with members. Folks, that's up to you. We're all professional communicators. We communicate on behalf of our clients and our organizations. And so my advice to you is to treat your chapter like a client or an employer. How would you advise them? We're all in the business of communicating and solving communication problems. So just make sure that you are communicating regularly with members. They need to be hearing from you frequently. Offer quality programming. That is probably the most important thing that you do. I'm not going to touch on that because that's being covered in another session, but it's imperative that the programming that you're offering for your members is meeting their needs and is of good quality. The other important thing that you are doing is helping to build community among your members. And depending on your chapter size, you can do that in a couple of different ways. I wanted to call out the Charlotte chapter. I don't know if anybody is on here from Charlotte right now, but they've been doing coffee chats for quite a while. It's called Connect Over Coffee. I think they started it before the pandemic and they've continued it in a virtual environment. And they have several every month. And those chats are kind of based on topic, like maybe there's a media relations chat or a crisis communications chat. Also, by career stage. I think they have a young pros group. So that's kind of a cool thing to do. You might consider something like that to just help build community. This one I love. Our Tampa chapter, they didn't really plan for this. It sort of developed organically, but they had a job search support group that rose up in the chapter. When the pandemic first hit in force in late March, early April, I think they had about a dozen members who suddenly found themselves without jobs. Somehow those people connected and they kind of evolved into a support group. They met weekly. I believe they met every Monday morning. And it was a couple of aspects. They were, just providing emotional support to each other, but also practical help. They were reviewing each other's resumes and LinkedIn profiles. They were sharing job leads. If somebody heard about a job that wasn't right for them, they shared it with the group in case it was right for somebody else. And they kept going for several months. I'm not sure if it's still happening, but it's a fabulous idea. So take a look around your chapter. If you're in an area that has seen a lot of job loss among your communication folks, your members, maybe there's something you can do along that line to help build community with those folks and support them. Another thing that you need to be doing is using your national membership reports. You get those weekly, and one of those reports shows who among your current membership is up for renewal. It's really important to reach out to those people. Hopefully you've reached out to them before they're up for renewal. And when you do connect with them, it's not really just reminding them to renew. National's doing that. What's more important for you at the chapter level is to just talk to these folks. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? Have you been able to participate in some chapter activities? What can we do differently? I think if you're able to talk to some folks, you get some really good insights that will help you. Recognize and thank your members. A lot of chapters do this really well. You recognize people when they get their APR. You recognize them when they get a new job or get a promotion. I've seen some chapters who thank their members who renew. Hey, thanks to these 3 folks that renewed their membership last month. We're really excited you're still going to be part of our community. Something that you might consider doing is recognizing people for their years of membership with PRSA. national office can help you with that. They can run a report and kind of help you identify those membership milestones, whether it's like 5, 10 years, something like that. One other thing that you need to try to do is to really be intentional about showing the chapter value. We're talking about all these things and chapter activities. Consider a chapter report card, an annual report card, just a one sheet. You know, how many programs did you have? How many of your members achieved APR? Did you guys do a food drive? You know, what did you do? And just put that all on a one sheet. I expect for all of you, it would be very impressive. And it's a nice way to just remind everybody what you're doing and what benefit that they're getting out of being a member of your chapter. So what else? Anna Marshall, what are we seeing in chat? Do we have any comments or questions?
Responding to some of them now, if you guys aren't getting the membership reports from National, if your membership chair is not, do contact them and they'll set that up. Also, Minnie, to add on to your point about the chapter report card, that gives members a tremendous sense of pride. You know, I belong to this group that's doing awesome things. And even in a pandemic, we had 9 great events. We gained 2 new members. I mean, 2's big in a pandemic for some chapters, but celebrating the small steps tends to go a very long way with members and boosting their morale and can actually prompt them to get more engaged. Yes, Leila, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. It is a great way for members to share the value with their employers. I think that's always a tough haul. You know, every time we're up for renewal, if our employers do pay for our dues, they want to know what we're getting out of it. And that's also a great way to bring it back. Other questions, anybody else have any success stories on onboarding in a virtual world? You know, as Mindy mentioned, that is the most important part. You know, you get somebody interested in joining your organization, they join, and then what next? How do we do that virtually? A new member coffee chat. That's awesome, Elizabeth. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We are one of those chapters that have been losing members here and there all year. And so I guess it was around October that I went back and looked at all of the members that had joined during the pandemic, and we sent them a little virtual $5 Starbucks card and invited them to get together and meet each other in a small group so that they could talk to each other, introduce myself, see my face. We had about half of them join. It was a really great conversation. They were able to introduce themselves, explain like what they were hoping to get out of the chapter, what they were looking for. But even the people that didn't attend the session, I still heard from them. So I connected with them on LinkedIn. I sent them a personal message inviting them, and they said that they really appreciated the fact that they got a personal invitation, and I started the conversation with them. So they have been very engaged even after that. So that was a huge plus.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Elizabeth, you mentioned something too that you know, we've had good success with. It's a simple step for board members to do, but when you get new members, connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them a personal message on, you know, the platform that they seem to prefer. Connect with them on Facebook if they don't have LinkedIn. Say, we're glad you're here. Let me know how I can help. What are you hoping to get out of membership? I'm happy to help deliver. That's a great step to take. Anybody else?
All right, well, let's move on. That's great. Thank you all. We've already started talking about some prospective members, and I'm going to run through some of this kind of quickly. I don't want to run out of time here. It's already 10:20. Where does the time go? Using national promotions, no brainer. They send you stuff. They send you promotions calendars, social media posts, graphic assets. They've done all the work for you to create these great collaterals. Just push them out, please. But also importantly, let us know if you have feedback on those promotions. If there's something that's working really well, that'd be great to hear. If something's not working, that's also important to know. And if you have an idea for a promotion, do share that with us. You can share it with me, or you can connect with Michael Malero in membership department at National. That's important to know. This is a big one that came up with a lot of people, and I've heard this from a lot of chapters. How do you connect with the national members in your area who are not chapter members? You just got to do it. That's on a report that you get. You can reach out to those folks, see who knows them on your board. Does somebody know them? Call them up, ask them like, hey, you know, I've been serving on the board of the chapter and I see you're not a member. How come? You know, have you been a member in the past? What? Just get some insights and see if you can find out why they're not members and what they need, that maybe you can convert them. For some of our larger chapters, they've done some actual campaigns that target those non-chapter members. If you're interested in doing something like that, follow up with me and we can talk more about that. Ask your board members to ID prospects. Everybody knows somebody that probably should be a member of PRSA. Make it a board exercise. Do it up front at a board meeting. I think it'd be a lot more fun to talk about who you all know in the community that can be part of your chapter than it would be to approve your minutes or go over financial reports. Another no-brainer, follow up with non-members that participate in your events. I think folks do that, maybe not as consistently as they should, but I think that's important. And recruitment tools and using national resources. National has, I think, 3 different membership brochures. I will make sure that those are in the chapter leadership community on my PRSA. They may already be there. If they're not, I'll upload them. They have a general membership brochure that just highlights all the features and benefits of membership. They have one that I think it's 10 ways PRSA can help you in your career development. And then I think they have one that's targeted towards students. So those tools are available, but if you have the resources, you can develop your own recruitment tools, you know, member testimonials that you can include in some of your social posts. You know, a quick video. Nobody's expecting highly produced video right now, but if you can, you know, capture some iPhone video of some of your core members talking about how being part of PRSA and being part of the chapter has benefited them, that's great. The Philadelphia chapter did something like that 2 or 3 years ago. I'm going to encourage those folks to pull those videos out and see if they can still use it. So what else? How else can we recruit new members to our chapters? What are we seeing in the chat, Anna Marshall?
Everybody's paying very close attention, Mindy.
Oh.
Nothing in the chat right now. Have you guys had any particular success with, you know, small baby steps in recruitment during the pandemic?
Yes, no, maybe. Okay, here's a question I want to throw out to you guys. We had a couple of folks mention this in the open-ended part of the survey. Looking for communication strategies around the cost of membership. I hear about that occasionally. It's come up more frequently since the pandemic. People are wondering, is the cost of PRSA membership worth it? And what are some communication strategies we can employ? What's the messaging to tell people? Has anyone developed anything like that?
Mindy, I just wanted to say that I always bring up, you know, careers, and are you always going to stay in one place, you know, throughout your entire career? And if not, you know, your PRSA membership is just so important because you can reach out to people across the country, and everybody has connections across the country. So that's what makes, you know, the PRSA membership so important.
That's a great point, Liz. Thank you for bringing that up.
And Mindy, could I add to that? and I put this, I quickly typed it, so I noticed I put a typo in there that annoys me. But I always say with the value of membership, for the cost of 2 webinars, it pays for itself in terms of the content. And in our chapter, in Central PA chapter, we have another PR organization in town. And I always say, join both, because the local one is local, it's networking, it's a very social networking organization. And I say, you can have that social interaction as well as join PRSA, and you have this incredible international organization with the resources and the knowledge and the, as Liz pointed out, that national connection base is really an incredible value for what the fees are. And I think the fact that PRSA is offered to have more of a payment plan structure, I think helps for those. I think payment is the price point sometimes is an issue for people if their employers are not paying. That has been prohibitive, I know, for people in our region, because they could just join the other chapter and get some good content and attend our programs when they want to in a non-member rate. So having that payment plan option, I think, made a big difference, and hopefully there might be other options in the future we can offer, maybe a monthly payment plan or something like that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up, Leslie. If you attended Leadership Rally, you heard the presentation with Jay Starr, where they're exploring some different types of membership models. I don't have any update on that right now, so we'll just kind of watch and see what they do with that. Okay. Anything else about recruiting members before we move on? All right.
Mindy, do you want to talk about a little bit about, or maybe we can actually circle back to this at the end so we can get through the presentation. I do want to touch on, before we dismiss, about the smaller committees who are having trouble recruiting. And then Robin says in DC, communicating the value of being a member for professionals has been a challenge, especially during the pandemic, because we all value the in-person networking so much. So I want to come back to the smaller committee sizes and recruiting using value props during the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, I have committee. We'll address that on the volunteer thing. Thank you for that. Let's go ahead and move on. We talked a little bit about onboarding new members. I cannot underscore this enough. You guys, 50% of PRSA members drop their membership after the first year. Is that surprising to you? It's actually improving. It used to be a lower percentage, or excuse me, it was a higher percentage dropped. It's starting to improve, but we really must make onboarding a priority. National recognizes that, and they are doing some things. We talked about this, welcoming people personally, welcome them publicly, helping them engage with the national resources, their national benefits. That's where National is helping. They do a monthly new member webinar. It's about 30 minutes, and it's just a real high-level overview of all the benefits and how people can kind of get plugged in. The other initiative that National has undertaken is I think it's a series of emails, and I believe it's 10 touch points in the first 9 months of a member's email. Like the day they join, they get a welcome email, but then they get more emails after that. And each email highlights a particular benefit and gives the new member a call to action. So if you can amplify that as far as, make sure you're taking advantage of your national benefits, but at the same time, help them engage with the chapter. When you're talking to them, welcome them. Why did they join? What do they need? It's important to connect them with other people, especially if someone is new to your area. Connect them, help introduce them around. Some chapters have a buddy program where they connect a new member with a more seasoned member. And it's just a short-term thing. If it organically develops into something else, that's fine. but just match them up with a seasoned member, maybe some of those senior practitioners that some of you struggle with keeping engaged. And that person reaches out to them. Hi, I'm so glad you're part of the chapter. Can I answer any chapter questions? Let me connect you with 2 or 3 other people that I think you'd like to meet. It just really helps them feel included and feel that they matter, that they care. Anna Marshall, remind me again, what did Robin want to talk about? The value proposition?
Yes, the value proposition.
Robin, can you jump on and tell us a little bit about what you guys are already doing and where you might have some gaps, and we'll see if we can work through that for a couple minutes.
Sure. The biggest struggle for us isn't overall value, but a lot of our members join here in DC for the in-person networking. That's something they cite as the biggest thing, and they use it, if not for themselves as independent practitioners, for their business to recruit new clients. And that lack of in-person opportunities is something that a lot of members have cited in the past year as a reason they aren't planning to renew, or they don't want to renew because they don't have that business building opportunity. And that's mainly what they use their membership for and where they find the most value. So really communicating how, like, other ways to do that aren't necessarily, you know, meeting people in person is something we're struggling with a little bit. We have lots of benefits. We know that, and communicating those, but a lot of our members find that a very particular benefit that's valuable to them.
I think that's valuable to a lot of people, and I'm hearing from a lot of chapters, like they have figured out how to deliver programming, you know, professional development virtually. It's that in-person networking that they're struggling with. So I'm sorry, I don't have the answer. If anybody has done something that has helped with networking and community building, I'd love to hear about it. I think that's going to be what people are really going to be trying to focus on these next, 6 months. Like I said, we know how to do the PD virtually, but how do we provide those connection points for our members to talk to each other and network and do some business building? Does anybody have any insights on that?
I can just share. This is Andrea. I'm from Tennessee. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I'll just share that in some of our meetings, we have been very intentional about including Zoom breakout room time before the meeting. So taking 15, 20 minutes as people come in, put them in a group of 6, 7, 8 other people, and having someone in that group that can kind of get conversation started. And what we have found is that people are responding well to that time, and they say they are meeting and having even short conversations with different people they didn't know before, that they are getting to know that they might not have to know in a normal meeting. Because when we go to the normal meeting and we see everybody together in person, we tend to gravitate towards people we already know. But when we come into that virtual breakout room and everybody is the same size square box space, it's easier to see everybody. Everybody's on a level playing field, and conversation tends to happen a little bit more organically that way than it might happen in a regular meeting. And so this is not perfect. This is something we've just been trying. It seems to be having a positive result for us. So I just offer that up.
Andrea, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've seen that happen in some other organizations that I'm a part of, where they do have those smaller breakouts, and they do seem to work well. It's not a great substitute for in-person, but we do the best we can with what we have right now. So anybody else trying anything like that or something different?
Mindy, one of the organizations I belong to in North Carolina, it's a statewide organization, 55 direct members, and we're in classes. So there are hundreds and thousands of us, but we were all meeting together, networking regularly, you know, and getting a lot out of that, building business, building personal connections, you know, professional connections and so on. And then, you know, pandemic strikes. What do you do with a bunch of communicators who thrive on networking? They threw us into a Zoom, sent us a cocktail recipe, and it had 3 icebreakers to encourage us to, you know, start our own conversations, and then split us out into breakout rooms. And we all came back together and toasted to successes, little and large, during a pandemic. So it was no business, you know, we didn't have an agenda. We didn't have a presentation. People were able to share, you know, what they were feeling, what they were going through. We were mad that we couldn't get together. Everybody is. But it was a good outlet for that. And the cocktail recipe was pretty cute, but with no real agenda. So I'd encourage you guys just to have a regular touch point. People can join if they want to. But it's been a really good morale builder, and it's keeping us hanging on until we can see each other again.
That's great, Anna Marshall. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. We're running low on time. It's 10:37, so let's just move quickly to volunteers. I don't think there's anything on here that is going to be a surprise to anybody, but let's talk just a little bit. When you're looking for your volunteer recruitment, I think it's important to just step back, particularly as a board. This is another board exercise, and just look at the activities that your chapter is doing and make sure that your volunteer needs are aligned with those activities. There may be a volunteer role that you've had that is less important right now, so don't worry about filling that one. Focus on the ones that you really need to have somebody in that role for, you know, that's more important to you right now. And that's the other thing, is creating multiple types of volunteer roles. PRSA structure kind of does lock you in where you need some key volunteer positions, you know, for your board, your officers that are a full year commitment to the chapter. Look for ways that you can have smaller one-off roles. Not everybody wants or has the ability to make a year-long commitment to a chapter, but I bet you can find people who would say, hey, yeah, sure, I can take 30 minutes and write a blog post for the website, or I can write a newspaper article. Maybe when we get back to in person, you've seen John's Facebook page and he takes great pictures. Maybe you ask John, hey, we need somebody to take pictures at our next event. Would you be able to help us? Just, you know, we need to start thinking differently about our volunteer roles. The other thing is to make sure you have position descriptions. People want to know what they're committing to and what the expectations are, but they also want to know how that volunteer role is going to benefit them and how it's going to make an impact in the organization. It's called mission-driven volunteering. People want to know, they want to volunteer. It's not that they don't want to volunteer. They do want to volunteer, but they want to know what they're doing is important and it matters and it's making a difference to help the chapter. You need to make a personal ask. You can put out a general call to volunteers till the cows come home, and you might get a couple of people, but you really need to pick up the phone. Even email is not necessarily the most effective. You got to pick up the phone and ask people and have that conversation with them. And while you're having that conversation, you can find out what's important to them. That's the next bullet point, to tap into their why. Why are they in PRSA? Why might they want to volunteer? What their interests are? And that can help you slot them into a position that's really going to have a meaningful experience for both them and for the chapter. I was so excited to hear Felicia talking about involving students. I think that's really, really important for a lot of reasons. I have heard of some chapters who are now putting PRSA students on their chapter boards. They're typically a non-voting person, but they're participating with the board. It's a win-win. The students are building their professional networks. They're watching you all and participating with you, conducting business and making decisions. And my goodness, what an opportunity to hear from younger voices. You guys can learn from them. So find ways that you can involve students as volunteers in your chapter to support what you're doing. Recognizing and thanking your volunteers, y'all know how to do that. You can't do it enough. Do it as much as you're able. When I talked about mission-driven volunteering, I have a white paper on that I came across a year or two ago. It's pretty lengthy. It's about 20 some pages. It's a really, really good read. If anybody is interested in learning more about that, send me an email, mindy.hughes@prsa.org. I'll be happy to share that with you. It talks about tapping into the members' why, and it also gives a lot of concrete examples of how to find and develop some of those smaller volunteer roles. I saw a note from Kim that we just have a few more minutes. Anna Marshall, are we seeing anything in the chat about volunteer recruitment?
Not particularly, but loving the fact of including students. That's how so many of our young professionals have gotten ripped in, and me included. That's how I started years ago. PRSA directed me to my chapter when I moved to DC, and then DC sent a warm welcome for me, or introduction to North Carolina. So, I mean, it was a really good transition there. One question, Mindy, you might know the answer to, and if you don't, I'll get it. Can chapters share the new member webinars on their websites, or at least a link?
That's a great question. I know that PRSA does send that invitation to those webinars out. They do it every month. It's not a canned presentation. Michael Malero leads it. It's a live webinar every month. Let me talk to Michael and see how they are inviting people to that, to see if we can get a link. I'll make a note of that. And they typically do them the first week of the month. At least they were in 2020. So I'm not sure what the 2021 schedule is, but I will find out about that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Anything else? This is our wrap up. We have a couple more minutes. Anything that I talked about, we went through so much information so quickly. I really appreciate your attention. Any final thoughts, questions, comments? Just chat it in to Anna Marshall. Will shout it out for us. All right. Well, hearing none, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining this session. I hope it's been helpful. Stay with us. Oh, we still have 2 minutes. Come on, what can we do in 2 minutes? Who has something you want to talk about? I have something I want to talk about then. I'm going to go back to something that we didn't hit on. When we talked about cost of membership and the quarterly payment plan and PRSA's hardship plan, I think most folks are aware of that. If you've been a member for 3 or more years and you've lost your job, and I think they give you a 50% discount on your membership dues for a year. We have chapters that are doing that on the chapter level as well to support their members who are struggling right now. Tampa's done it, Orlando, Miami, Alabama chapters getting ready to do it. They have the resources where if one of their members has qualified for PRSA's national hardship plan, they're doing a similar initiative on the chapter level to help chapter to keep enabling them to stay involved with PRSA. If you'd like information about how to do that, let me know and I can connect you with Michael Malero and he can help you figure out the logistics of how to do it. As much as we can do to support people right now, I think it's important to do that. I know the cost can be a little prohibitive for some folks if they're, especially if they've lost a job or lost a client or whatever. So just
Mindy, Laurie has something she wanted to share. Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry, I didn't know we were gonna run out of time real quick. We're looking, and this may be new to maybe a couple of board members from our chapter that are on right now. But we were approached by one of our PRSA advisors, Brendan, who's also on with Old Dominion University. He's on our board, and we're looking at potentially using his strategic comms class to assist us in doing a membership survey and actually doing the research and the getting people to fill out the survey that a lot of us as professionals don't have a lot of time to do. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition. I think that'll be a really great way to involve students and then also help us figure out our membership, not just current, but what the region is looking like as a whole for professionals and why aren't we hitting it. So anyway, it's just an idea to throw out there to help get students. So even if it's a college that may not have a PRSA chapter, you could tap into their comms program to see if they've got some type of active project that they need done.
Laurie, that's an excellent idea. And most of those classes actually require, most of those courses, if they don't have a capstone class, they have to take research methods.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
have to take, I forget the name of my particular class, but I had to write a plan.
Right.
You should also challenge them, you know, take those results, analyze them, and propose a plan.
That's what they're going to do. That's what they're
awesome.
Gonna do. They're going to do the
That's
research.
awesome.
So maybe I'll be asking you for that white paper so I can just share that for them. But anyways, I just wanted to share that concept.
Lori, thanks a lot. That's great. I love that idea. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So shout out to our friends at Old Dominion University in Norfolk.
Yes.
We're fortunate. We have them, and then we have Hampton University. So excellent. Well, I thought we'd be leaving by now. It's 10:47. I guess nobody's gotten a message to leave. I don't have a lot of experience with these breakout rooms, so.
I'm sure Kim will be getting to us momentarily.